These folks, we've had at least one meeting there in the past. I won't get this right here. Marquis de Lafayette is the topic. Please don't correct me, I know I'm wrong. We'll already go with that. Donations are always welcome to the Louisville Historical League. Membership, according to Steve, is free. So that's that. Our speaker today, Mr. Dorian Hairston, has driven all the way from Lexington, Kentucky to be here. And I want him to know that I called the Public Works Department this past week, and they sent out all their vehicles to make sure all the snow was off the streets so that you'd have a nice clear path coming into here. So,
appreciate it.
yeah. And his subject is Josh Gibson, baseball player, and subtitle here, Pretend the Ball is Named Jim Crow. So this should be a nice subject and of great interest to us. Let's give a round of applause to Mr. Dorian Hairston. And since it's about baseball, I think you'll immediately recognize him.
Thank you for that introduction. Since we've got a little like a smaller crowd, we're a bit more intimate. Am I coming through all right for everybody? Okay.
Yeah, and I can get you up a little more if we need.
I'm gonna read. So I've been working on some new stuff. So this is the book that I will be reading from for the bulk of the afternoon. But I've been working on some new stuff about one woman by the name of Effa Manley, who is the only woman in Major League Baseball's Hall of Fame, and she co-owned a baseball team up in Newark, a Negro League baseball team up in Newark, called the Newark Eagles. And she actually met her husband, Abe, at a New York Yankees game. I'm blanking on the year. And that was her second husband. She ended up having 4. Her mom, when she was a teenager, told her that her mother, who was white, had an affair with her white employer. So Effa claims that she was biologically, whatever that means, a white woman, but passed for black. Her mother's husband was black. The man that raised her was a black man, and all of her siblings were biracial. So she lived her life as this black woman, and in the text I explore what race means. But I'm going to read a couple of poems from her and her husband's point of view that I think might be useful to help in this conversation as we talk about Josh Gibson and the Negro Leagues and his life and his legacy. So this first poem is from the persona of, and I write persona poetry. That's my way of trying to get those voices or that history out there. So Abe, Effa Manley's husband, is the speaker in this poem, and it is titled Ivory Hunters, which is significant because in the early aughts, in the early days of Major League Baseball, that was the name of scouts. We called scouts Ivory Hunters. So this first poem is titled Ivory Hunters, and it's from the persona of Abe Manley. The Ivory Hunters over in Brooklyn, New York, St. Louis, and Boston, and Detroit, and Cleveland all waste their time poaching their minor leagues, and soon these Negro ones, for talented and developing elephants. It is a shame, should be criminal, and no doubt sinful, to think you can rename these fauna beasts to justify your hunt, and with devilish precision rid the earth of our Creator's graceful soul in a not so intricate game of target practice, which you have mistagged as sport. Only you can convert this brutal root canal into some form of business, a religion worshiping endless prophetic dead presidents who no doubt forcibly displaced limbs and villages and families and tongues for speaking true, and this non-consensual extraction of teeth, transplanting all into that first blasphemous mouth, replacing rotting, sugar-ridden, decaying, decrepit dentition with stolen, healthy black ones. Your kinfolk stacked buffalo carcasses into an asymmetrical pyramid of profanity, an abomination, an unjustifiable attempt at the Tower of Babel. Here's the plan. Once we have enough money to protect the sanctity of creation, we will replace the ivory tusk with black bones and call the glossy enamel black ivory, and agree whenever anything European seeks to extract beauty for profit, we do some ivory hunting ourselves. So one of the things that Effa and Abe kind of did, and what a lot of these Negro League baseball team owners did, is that they tried to figure out ways to kind of build black economies inside of cities. So for example, Effa Manley was she was the treasurer of the local chapter of the NAACP in Newark. And you saw like Gus Greenlee in Pittsburgh, who was directly connected to Josh. Gus Greenlee owned a bar and grill. He also had he was running numbers. He was responsible for managing the numbers running game in Pittsburgh in some part. He was also kind of like a loan shark. You had Cumberland Posey, who was in Pittsburgh. You all may know a guy by the name of Andrew Carnegie. So Andrew Carnegie needed people to move steel up and down the river. Cumberland Posey, who owned the Pittsburgh Crawfords, he was responsible for doing that. His wife was also in the NAACP. I want to say she was also a treasurer, just like Effa, but she was in the NAACP, and she actually started a book club there in Pittsburgh that is still running today for women of color in Pittsburgh. So what I found in this research, so my most recent research is about, like I said, the owners of these black economies that were attempted to being built, or there was an attempt at building them, is this negotiation that folks have to have with staying authentically black, whatever that means, and also trying to interact with white power structures. Because as you look through history, it becomes very difficult to do one without also doing the other. So in this, I have a contrapuntal. So a contrapuntal, I'm going to nerd out for a second with poetry. A contrapuntal is 3 poems in one. So you have your left poem, and that's one voice. You have your right poem, and that's another voice. And then you can read them across together, and that's a third poem. So this is titled Effa versus Ray, and Ray is a character that I've made up, and it's a character that criticizes kind of Effa, Abe, Gus, and Cumberland Posey, and all these guys, and what they're trying to build. So some background with this one: Effa Manley up in Pittsburgh was working with, I am blanking on this gentleman's name, who basically they were trying to build a certain aesthetic around black baseball. So they wanted to make sure that the individuals that were coming to games weren't getting too drunk or too disorderly. Or for those of you all that watched the NFL halftime show, as Samuel L. Jackson, as Uncle Sam said, too ghetto. She wanted to make sure that folks weren't doing that. So she actually not only enlisted the police, she had plainclothes officers. So here's this black woman having plainclothes officers in these black baseball games, arresting folks, well, detaining folks, and to me it seems like illegally, for not following the rules of the park and then just letting them go after the game or the next morning once they sobered up. But they weren't legally detained. So this is Effa Manley and Ray going back and forth on the role that police officers should play in this building of this institution. The first one is Effa. There is no place for drunkenness at the park. We black folk must remain virtuous at all crossroads, since it makes little sense to squeeze coppers together and be intoxicated as they consider colonizing our whole culture, the park, the players, the fans, and never give ownership a bloody cent, turn entire institutions to ashes by not so subtly dropping bombs and bullets around the entire community. Understand this, black folk. If we are not careful, acting how we act can warrant the inevitable death of our people. Ray. The bar across the street where police stake out to ensure we remain publicly respectable be our only opportunity to escape to freedom, to steal ourselves away to the blues while underneath their voyeuristic gaze we sing, ignoring their attempts to contemplate confiscation of stuff that can't belong to nobody. But then again, these the same folk conjuring the police in the first place. Badge numbers shielding property for those possessing assets to preserve. Once we call the police, every movement after reinforces their service and protection, translating to the ungodly profits of whiteness. Altogether. There is no place for the bar across the street where police stake out drunkenness at the park to ensure we remain publicly respectable. We black folk must be our only opportunity to remain virtuous at all crossroads, escape to freedom, since it makes little sense to steal oneself away to the blues, to squeeze coppers together, and while underneath their voyeuristic gaze, we be intoxicated as they sing, ignoring their attempts to consider colonizing, contemplate confiscation of our whole culture, the park, the players, the fans, stuff that can't belong to nobody and never give ownership a bloody cent. But then again, these the same folk turn entire institutions to ashes by conjuring the police in the first place, not so subtly dropping bombs and bullets, badge numbers, shielding property around the entire community for those possessing assets to preserve. Understand this, black folk. Once we call the police, if we are not careful, every movement after reinforces acting how we act can warrant their service and protection, translating the inevitable death of our people to the ungodly profits of whiteness. So that's Effa and Abe and Ray. So that is kind of what I've been working on lately. And I wanted to start with that so that we could get a kind of idea of where this book comes from. Pretend the Ball is Named Jim Crow, the story of Josh Gibson. Which Josh Gibson is, without a doubt, the greatest baseball player to ever play the game. I credit him with hitting over 800 home runs in his career. Major League Baseball only counts 200 and something. We can get into that later. I think it's ironic that they can't find all of his home runs, given the amount of power that he had as a player. He is the all-time single-season batting average leader, which means that Ty Cobb, which if you know anything about Ty Cobb, a black man, removing him from that position is just chef's kiss. So he's now the all-time single-season batting average leader for Major League Baseball. He's the single-season on-base plus slugging leader. I want to say he's also the all-time on-base plus slugging leader. So back in March of 24, so last March, Major League Baseball integrated their record books. So that made Negro League stats now count for Major League Baseball, which is what put Josh Gibson at the top of some of those lists. He is the first Negro League baseball player to be inducted into the Hall of Fame without actually playing Major League Baseball. I do believe he was the third. So you got Jackie Robinson, and then Satchel Paige, and then Josh Gibson. I think that's right in terms of the order of Negro League baseball players to be inducted. And then he got married when he was 18 years old. His wife died giving birth to a set of twins when he was 19. She was 17. The twins survived. They were named after their parents. So I'm going to read the first poem in the collection titled Manifesto for Black Baseball Players. And I played baseball at the best school in the state to play baseball, and that is the University of Kentucky. And my little brother played at the second best school in the state for collegiate baseball, and that is one University of Louisville. And I'll say this, that if you ever see a wildcat in the wild and then you see a cardinal in the wild, which one are you picking? I'll say that. So this is called a World Series poem. It's written in couplets. It's written in 9 couplets to mirror a baseball game. And if anybody wants to follow along, it's on page 3. This is Manifesto for Black Baseball Players. This is persona Josh Gibson. 1. Never forget the 42 reasons baseball is best played with color. 2. Steal bases like they stole this country. 3. Break into record books, turn more than just the ink black. 4. Pretend the ball is named Jim Crow. 5. Decolonize the Hall of Fame. 6. Remember we gave the game lights, helmets, and style. 7. Never be controlled by anything white. 8. Belt lift every voice and sing during the national anthem. 9. Find you a Helen, drop down on one knee, place a baseball field on her 4th finger. So I just mentioned Helen. I'm just gonna respond to whatever I hear as I'm reading the poem and let this kind of flow organically instead of following these tabs that I picked out, just because I want this to be intimate. So that last couplet references Helen, and the early part of the book. So the book is broken up into sections like a baseball game. So it's the bottom of the 1st, bottom of the 4th, I think, and then top of the 5th, bottom of the 6th, bottom of the 9th, and then I've got books with me. If you buy a book, I give you free baseball. So there's extra innings at the end of the book, just like there can be extra innings in a baseball game. So Helen in this early section is trying to help me, or rather, I'm using Helen's voice to try to help set up Josh's beginning years and how we kind of get this boy that becomes his man. So this first poem is naming, and this is this I wrote early on, and then I have 2 kids at home, and a lovely wife, and I edited this heavily after I had my own kids. So naming, Helen Gibson. Doc says there are 2 sets of feet trying to stretch themselves a little more room inside me, and they're running out of space. I feel they might be searching for another belly soon, the way they wrestle each other into a comfortable position. It's like all the secrets and promises Josh has blown into my ear have slid into my womb and grown themselves too big for what Doc say is my too small frame. We both think he's wrong. Josh's favorite thing to do when he try and catch some sleep is to place his callus-covered hands on my tummy, try to guess which part of the twins is on the other side of my stretched out, thin layer of skin. As he doze off, he like to tell them how he prays they come out looking as good as his mom, or as they mom. He even tries out a few names on them, then place his head close to listen for the twins' approval. We all let him play his game. When Josh gets to sleep and snores enough times for them to feel confident he out for good, the twins whisper up in my ear exactly what they want to be called, and make me promise to keep it a secret. So this next poem is, because I'm writing in persona, so there's no prose inside of the text. So to try to move the narrative forward, I was like, how do I get Josh to communicate his love for Helen? Because Josh was oftentimes characterized as kind of like a gentle giant. The way that Bob Kendrick, the president of the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, described it when we were doing a podcast together, or when I was on his podcast. He said, Josh is the type of person that would poke you, and he's playing and he doesn't know that it hurts you. That's just how strong this man was. And I settled on letters. So the reason why we can't find all of the home runs as we look back in the records is because Josh hit some of them to wherever Helen is. So this is home run number 1. Dear Helen, I snuck this one into the bucket of game balls, sealed the envelope by stitching it closed with the bright red laces from your favorite shoes. Spent hours trying to squeeze each second of 2 years into 5.25 ounces of white leather wound tight around the core of a ball. This is my first letter, the first of many. Just one of these can't hold all this love, so I will pretend each ball can fly its way through the stars to you. I'll split each message up, ball after ball, home run after home run, till God get tired of all them broken windows up in heaven and bring me there too. Love, Josh. And this next one, I don't read that often, but I'm gonna read it just because I'm feeling like I want to read their relationship. So this is Night Visions for anybody who's wanting to follow along. It's page 10. This is Josh Gibson Jr. Telling the story of how he and his sister enter the world. Night Visions, Josh Gibson Jr. Aunties say they're just nightmares, but they're the realest thing I ever seen. Papa's in the hospital room with walls darker than he is when he come home in the summer. I never can tell if the screams are me, my sister, or Papa, or Granny, or some ghost. The doctor hold us like little secrets, but Papa refused to even touch or look at his 2 little mirrors like he disgusted at the image we spit back at him, or worse, the memory of all the dreams he used to have. He just stared at Mama sleeping, real peaceful, right, exhausted. When the doctor tried and hand us to Papa, an echo of, I don't want them, I want my wife. Take the knees right out from under Big Josh. That's when I wake up. And Auntie come in and say, I've been screaming, wipes the sweat off my face, tells the lie, everything is all right. I told Auntie once about my nightmare and asked if it was as real as it feels. She tell me we got our names 3 whole weeks after we was born because it hurt Papa too much. Now, I always freeze the nightmare when we all in the room together and Mama just sleep. Helen and I ain't been named yet, and Papa got his family back. So this next poem, there's a character in the collection by the name of Hooks Tinker. So Hooks Tinker is oftentimes credited with discovering Josh Gibson. He is a player manager in the Negro Leagues, which happened a lot. Judy Johnson, Buck O'Neill, Oscar Charleston, Rube Foster, for any Negro League fans. Those are all guys that were player managers as well. So Hooks Tinker discovers Josh, and in this collection, Hooks is highly critical of the way in which integration occurred. He's not necessarily saying that we shouldn't have done integration. He's just got some questions about how we went about doing it. So this This poem kind of echoes some of the themes I'm exploring in this Effa Manley Negro League Baseball owner collection. It's Seen It Coming, 1951. So during the talks about integration, there was a debate, and a lot of the black sports writers and newspapers were arguing, along with Effa Manley, that instead of just bringing players into the major leagues, we should have brought entire teams into the major leagues. And if you take the time to listen to the Louis B. Nunn Center's Oral Histories Project, one Happy Chandler, who governor of Kentucky, commissioner of baseball, oversaw the integration, and comes back and is governor again, and he sat on the board for the University of Kentucky for a while. But so he, in it, it's a kind of throwaway line, but he communicates that he felt that the Negro Leagues were too corrupt, among several other things. So in this, Hooks Tinker is communicating what he thinks about how integration played out. Seen It Coming, 1951. When they came over to our fields in a Model T shaped like Spanish ships, dressed in their European suits, fat fingers gripping Cuban cigars, they lowered their anchors and tied their boats to docks of Negro League ballparks just long enough to marvel at all their future profit draped in baseball uniforms. They planted their feet on African-built shores, pulled out their stopwatches, pens, and jotters to measure the dollar signs they branded on each black muscle. This, how they searched for who would help them raise their new pennants for cheap or free. They picked out their favorites, plucked at bedrock, until whole nations crumbled, watched their walls Jericho, raided all our resources, gave birth to the devil, then ripped off our eyelids to make sure we couldn't look away. And then this is also Hooks Tinker, and in this, so what was beautiful about Negro League baseball, what's beautiful about baseball in general is, and I'm going to go on a tangent here for a second. I don't know how many baseball fans are in the audience, but I absolutely hate some of the changes that we've been making to America's pastime. It is supposed to take a long time to watch a baseball game. It is not, there's no time limit. There shouldn't be. I am super opposed to any attempt to try to speed up the pace of the game. Because if you're an actual fan, you understand that the game at the major league level is very fast. It's just that and that's America. We're really good at ruining great things. But anyway, when you look at this experience, you're supposed to have to go to the park. That's the whole, like you're supposed to go to the park with somebody. I mean, Effa meets her husband at the ballpark. The plot of Good Will Hunting, the whole thing is he misses the game to go see about a girl. It's like, you missed Carlton Fisk's home run. He was like, well, you should have seen her. She was so beautiful, I was willing to miss a Red Sox game. The sixth game of the ALCS. Anyway, that was the tangent. But there's this thing that happens in a baseball game where you are around other people, which is so important. And social media is definitely making that more difficult. But in the Negro Leagues, there was this thing that would occur where you would see black folks and white folks together watching a baseball game, because Negro League baseball games were not segregated. Major League Baseball games were. And that's interestingly, that's also on the field too, not just in terms of the stands. So this is Westfield, and this is the persona of Hooks Tinker. Some folks say black ball ain't baseball, and they right. When a man save up all week to drop his last copper to come see us play, it becomes more than a game. When a collection plate gets passed around on Sunday and the whole family just touch the rim knowing they spending the Lord's 10% on an afternoon at the field, we understand we are forgiven. This is one of the few times we're able to let ourselves shine to the fullest. Even white folk bring their lunch boxes and gloves and a dog to the park, spend their whole afternoon rubbing elbows and clapping and cheering, dancing with us. I seen a man get down on one knee about halfway up third baseline and ask his woman to go to every game with him for the rest of their life. It ain't baseball we offer folk when they lay down their money to watch some black ball. We offer up the one place where we all agree a Negro ain't nothing but a man. So this next poem, one of the things that I did in that, because I'm in Louisville, I gotta read a back poem. So you all are really good at making baseball bats, a lot of things, but really good at making baseball bats. So inside of this collection, some baseball bats get to speak. And there's a poem in here where Josh likes to trash talk. And the story is that one time he trash talked his opponent so badly, he actually took himself out of the game. He went over 4, and Josh told him all about the things that he was doing off the field with somebody that person loved very much. And he removed himself from the game. So this next one is the bats balancing out that voice. So bat considering a strike. Them fellas talk real different when it's just them in the locker room. Josh and his teammates play like they're so-called sweethearts, more like cheap liquor or something you break down and sprinkle into the end of a pipe than a heartbeat or a woman or both. But if you really listen, all that talk about the only way and place they like they women, really just some weird game they play to measure themselves without actually having to do so. They lucky I never choose to speak in here, because I tell them all about how I was there when they was being crafted and shaped and nourished by and inside that black womb, and how I whispered my baby's names into the ears of everyone in that room. Them same breasts that they can't shut their mouths about done put all them muscle on that frame they pretend is godlike, and how they waste that brown skin on bad magic when they speak spells like they do. They better be glad that I ain't so foolish to spend my time bragging about 4 or 5 minutes, if I'm generous. That I spend all my energy jumping in and out of what they call the future. Everywhere I've been, they can't see past whatever they got in their hands, and while they waste their power shucking and jiving their way through all their pain and suffering, they lack the vision to think for one moment how lucky they is that in the bottom of the 9th, I never even contemplate going on strike. So this next poem, I'm gonna read a few more. So this next poem is it's about I think a lot about what we call progress, especially right now. So in this poem. You know, when I set out to write this book, I started writing. It was an independent study that I did with my high school English teacher. And Frank X. Walker, who's being inducted into the Kentucky Writers Hall of Fame next month in Lexington, Kentucky at our Carnegie Center. No, we moved it from the Carnegie Center. It's at it's off of Main Street, the Kentucky Theater. When he wrote Isaac Murphy, I Dedicate This Ride, I started writing this. But it was originally about Jackie Robinson, Happy Chandler, and Branch Rickey. And in that research, I started asking the question, was Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier enough? Was that the progress that we needed? Yes, but was it sufficient? Was that enough? So your enough ain't enough. Hooks Tinker. If you ever been confused about how humans can be bought and sold like stock, or how they can be bred like horses, branded like cattle, whipped like beasts, if you can't see how one can chain another human being on their back to a stranger in the soot-black pit of slave ships where the ocean's salty spit fights a war with piss on skin, if you don't understand how one can be made to pick cotton, harvest rice, hang tobacco or people for free, lay down rails, pave roads, build countries, make wealth for free, be wealth. If this seemed foreign to you, ain't no way you can see an American Negro soldier like Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier is nowhere near enough progress. So I'm gonna read this one for this one is my mom's favorite. Don't read into this one too much, but it's my mom's favorite. On my way here, I was on the phone with my wife, and my son decided to slap his sister across the face. So I'm gonna have a lot of fun when I get home talking to him about why we don't slap our sister across the face. So, Gator Belt, Josh Gibson Jr. This comes from, so one of the things that Negro League baseball players would do is they would leave wherever they were up in the Northeast usually, so Pittsburgh, New York, Chicago, Illinois, and they would go down to the South. They would go down to Venezuela, Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic. And while Josh was gone, Josh Gibson Jr. did something similar to his sister. So when Josh got back, this was Josh's response. Gator Belt, this will not be my response, so we're clear. But Gator Belt, Josh Gibson Jr. I used to practice my four-letter words on Helen when I knew Papa was too far away to hear them. If he was still in the States, I'd say them real fast, just in case he was coming by for an unscheduled visit to drop off some just cuz money. If he was down in Puerto Rico or somewhere in the land south of Mexico, and especially if he was down in the DR or Cuba, I let them slide out slow and long to make sure they bite hard enough. Granny heard one of these and told Papa when he made his way back from work about 6 months later. That woman can't remember to cut off the oven, but after all that time, can recall exactly how I sounded, even matching that small, grown-up bass in my voice. Apparently, alligators got nasty mouths too, and one of them must have got slick and called Papa out his name, because he came home and his granny told him the story. He just nodded his head, pulled the skin of that gator from around his waist, and cut both my cheeks raw with a beating so good that gator about came back to life. That was the last time Helen or Granny had any troubles from my tongue, and I ain't been that close to a gator since. I'm gonna read, I gotta read a Satchel poem. So Satchel Paige is considered the greatest pitcher of all time, in my opinion. That one's a little bit more debatable than the Josh Gibson question. So one of the things that Satchel Paige did while they were playing is he actually walked the bases loaded with 2 outs so that he could face Josh Gibson. Then he told him what pitches were coming and struck him out. Another Satchel Paige story is that he removed he didn't actually remove him from the field. He told everybody to sit down crisscross applesauce, and he proceeded to pitch like that with no defense. He was by far the most arrogant, and he could back it up, pitcher in the Negro Leagues. So this is my take on the time he walked the bases loaded to face Josh Gibson. Battle of the Greatest, Persona Satchel Paige, and it's got an epigraph. I'm not gonna throw smoke at your yoke. I'm gonna throw a pea at your knee, Satchel Paige. Gibson, been blessed 3 times. First, for coming out his mother's womb black as a storm. Second, for being able to hold all that thunder and lightning inside a bat. And third, of course, for getting to step into the box and face me. People say Satch versus Josh was like the battle of the titans and the gods, like Shango versus a mopane tree or David versus Goliath. But in this story, the giant and David stood on a mound together, one stretching to the heavens while the other slung enough baseballs to intentionally walk the bases loaded for Josh and his dull, one-sided axe to try and keep me from playing catch with Campy. I told Josh what was coming, aimed for the blackness of Campy's mitt, threw 3 balls past the storm and watched them all disappear. Later that night, I let good old Joshua know his only problem was that I'm too good. I did leave him with some advice. I suggested in the future, when he finds himself on his knees talking to his creator, he might want to ask for something to be done about that hole in his bat. So as promised, and this will be my, I'm actually gonna read 2 more. So this next one is, this penultimate one is another poem from the persona of Hooks Tinker, and it's called Cooperstown, and it's in the free baseball section of the book if you purchase one of the copies that I brought with me today. So this one's titled Cooperstown, and for non-baseball fans, Cooperstown is the location of the Baseball Hall of Fame. Cooperstown, Hooks Tinker. Everything about baseball white, but it's the Negro that make it a game. I've seen more out of our version of play in a single 9 innings than a whole season of theirs. Baseball in this country already missed their chance to make all this mess right. They should have never been afraid of their mediocrity, never feared being shown up. If there is one example sufficient to knock out all their nonsense about their superiority, it's the time Josh flattened a fastball from their league's so-called MVP, Dizzy Dean. Josh hit that ball so hard, Dean took himself out the game. This is how we know every record they hold before integration is a lie. Now it does feel good to see Josh's face mixed in with all them greats, bronze profiles making him seem immortal to all the living. But what I want to see, what Josh would have loved, is when you hang up our portraits, salute all our genius and power, all our finesse and flair, praise every drop of beauty, let all your fear go. Then, and only then, do I give you the right, the permission to say, play ball. That is actually a true story, by the way. Dizzy Dean, so one of the things that Negro League baseball teams would do is they would do what's called barnstorming. So you would see a Negro League team facing a semi-pro or like a pro but an off-season team thrown together, integrated or all-white team. And Dizzy Dean won the MVP the previous year, faced Josh. Josh hit a double and then a home run, or a home run and then a double. But either way, when he was rounding first base, Dizzy Dean was another one of those player managers. Dizzy Dean went to right field, told the right fielder to go into the dugout, and he said, somebody in the dugout, go pitch, because I'm done. So he took himself out of the game, and then afterwards he told Satch and Josh that if we had you on the St. Louis Cardinals, we would win the pennant by July and go fishing the rest of the year. So this is the last poem, and then I'll open it up for some questions. Is that this poem is titled the Walk Off, and it is "Or I Visit Josh's Grave." It is the only poem in the collection that is from my point of view, or from my persona. Get up, Josh. You ain't no Lazarus. You don't need Jesus, no God. You just you. Here's a bat. Get up. Get up. Get up, Josh. I brought you a glove. Let's play catch. I ain't much on pitching. We can hit if you just get up. They let us play now, you hear? They let us play. They say he was the greatest. You hear me? The greatest there ever was. And I just want to see. Can I see? Can you get up? It's me. I'm just a fan. My name's Dorian. I got power, but not like you. And I read about you once. My high school librarian found the only book in the whole school that mentioned your name. And my English teacher told me to write about you. And I brought some poems for you if you want to listen. That's cool, but I just want to play. Can we play? I know it's weird, me standing over your grave and such, but I think it's weird you're pretending to sleep. So please just get up. Let us play now. They even said, sorry, let you in the Hall of Fame, gave you the record that I know you already had. Maybe one day named the award after you, but they say it's better now. They ain't lynching us no more, they don't kill us as much, and we can work for them for more money now, and it's cool. And we done rewrote the record books, and we didn't even have you. But you gotta get up to see, you gotta get up. Get up, Josh. I'm putting together a team. You were my first pick, but you gotta get up. Please, I know you ain't Lazarus, and Jesus ain't done much for us, so I figured I'd just ask you straight, get up. I even got you a uniform if you just rise up. I wanna see. I wanna see what they kept me from. I wanna see what they were so afraid of. Get up, Josh, get up. You can't die. Please, just get up. Thank you. Questions?
I may have missed it. You were talking about this museum of the Negro Leagues,
Yes.
Black history related to baseball. Is there, where is this museum?
So the Negro League Baseball Museum is in Kansas City, Missouri, or Kansas City, Kansas, because there's two of them. They're right next to each other. I think it's Kansas City, Kansas. But it actually shares a facility with I want to say it's a jazz museum. And it's Bob Kendrick has done what he's done with, and it is inside. It's on the first floor of what used to be the Black Hotel in Kansas City.
Okay.
So you can go in, and it's got a big huge lobby. One side is and they've got actual bronze statues for all of the best players in the Negro Leagues at each position. So Satch is, of course, on the mound. Josh is catching. I think they just finished a monument or a statue for an umpire. But there's somebody in every position. There's a whole field inside. I mean, it's smaller, of course. And there's like 4 or 5 poems in the collection that came from my visit to the Negro League Baseball Museum.
Well, I know about the Jazz Museum, so it's in the same physical.
They're in the same physical, and at night they turn it into like a kind of juke joint type deal. So when I went that night, there was a live performance, and it was half the size of this room, and it was the vocals in there and the band. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes.
How many years was Josh active in the league, and what years what years did that cover?
So he's born 1911. He dies 1947. I am blanking on his first year, but he played all the way up until his death. So he died in January of 47. So 20-ish years, or close to it. I'd have to go double check on all of the years. Because he played a couple of years before he ended up on the Grays. He went to the Crawfords, and then he came back to the Grays. Yeah, he still had a few years left. He was the batting champion. He was the batting champion of 1946 in the Negro Leagues with a brain tumor.
So he was young, man.
Yeah. He still had, and actually while they were talking about who was going to integrate, one of the stories is that Josh said, basically, they don't want me to become the person to integrate because I'm not going to take it. And that may have been right. Did you have that's your hand? Okay, sorry. I'll say this, one of the things from this last poem that I was reading, in it says, they gave you your record that you already had. This book came out last year, so it came out February 9th of 2024. So it was already written. So I actually wrote the line that they gave you your record before they actually gave Josh the record. So one of my friends texted me, and when they integrated the record books, they said break into record books, turn more than just the ink black, and put quotes around it. And then I started thinking about that. Whenever I read that, I forget I wrote that before we integrated the record books.
I was going to ask how close those two happened. So.
It was like so February 9th, and then it was like the next month. And what ended up happening is, so they integrated the record books, and then all of the sudden, because I have a website, dghpoet.com, I got a notification from GoDaddy.com that my website traffic went way up. I was like, what on earth? And then I put two and two together. It was folks looking for Josh Gibson, and then they found my book. Yes.
Could you give because I thought you might do this, but maybe I missed it somehow, but could you give us a little bit of biography of yourself? Like,
I'm guilty. I'm really bad about that. Yes, so my name is Dorian Hairston. I grew up in Lexington, Kentucky. I played baseball at Tates Creek High School, and then I played 4 years of baseball at the University of Kentucky. So that was from 2000. So I started in the fall of 2012, and then 2016 was my senior year. My little brother he played baseball at the University of Louisville for 3 years. He won a Gold Glove. Actually, the ACC, fun fact, the ACC invented an award, a defensive award, for him so that they could put him up for a Gold Glove award. He's the best shortstop I've ever played with, without a doubt. There's not a close second. And I've played with guys that are in the major leagues right now. So after I finished 4 years of studying English and playing baseball at the University of Kentucky, got my MFA from the University of Kentucky, studying under Frank X. Walker was my thesis chair. He chaired my thesis committee. And then after that, I want to be a full-time poet, but it does not pay well. I don't know if for 2024 tax season, I will actually have to pay any taxes because of how much money I spent trying to write poetry. My day job is teaching high school English, and that does pay well enough to keep the lights on.
where are you teaching?
I'm at Frederick Douglass High School in Lexington, Kentucky. Before that, I was a behavior coach at Veterans Park Elementary. Then I taught online for 2 years at the Virtual Learning Academy, and then 3 years before that, I was at Frederick Douglass again, which I absolutely love this poster off to our agitate, Frederick Douglass. So, yes.
Did your team, your UK team, did you ever play the U of L team when your brother was on there?
So I will lead with, he is 4-0 against me. However, there's a video if you hop on YouTube. Let's see, it was in Lexington, and we were down, I think it was 9-6. We had a man on third base with 2 outs. I pinch hit against one of the Birdie brothers, and I hit a home run to tie the game up. And as I'm rounding first base, I see that there's a camera over my brother's head. So the light was red, and so I knew I couldn't say what I wanted to say because my mother would have, she would have gotten real creative in what she would have done to me if I had said that on national television. So I ended up just rounding second base and smirking at him, and then if you watch the video, there's like this really disgusted face he makes as I'm touching home plate. And I like to freeze that and take a picture of it and make it his contact picture on my phone. So yes, he is 4-0, but I think that what I did there counts for like 5 wins. So we're 4 and 5. was, and actually my fun fact, my brother's roommate, his mom owns a sewing business. So my mom actually used she had her white collared shirt, and on the back of it said Team Hairston. So she would wear the Louisville one when Louisville was playing at home, and then she would wear the UK one when UK was playing at home. And then my dad, who could never really sit next to my mom at baseball games, he would wear a neutral color whenever we played each other. So it was always gray or black. And you could always, actually, during the home run off of Louisville, my dad was standing next to, I don't know how, it's Dr. Capilouto, president of the University of Kentucky. They were just making small talk. They didn't know who each other was. And then he said, "Oh, that's my son." And then I hit the home run. He goes, "Well, we really got that one." So yeah, that's how that all went down.
So he wore gray or black?
He wore gray or black for home for whenever we played each other. Usually he would wear the team's colors, but if it was both of us at the same time, he didn't want to show any preference. My mom had no issue. It was the home team. Yes.
Does Lexington have a baseball stadium?
We have two, I guess. We have what's now Kentucky Proud Park. That's where the UK baseball team plays. It's a great facility. It's been brought up. We used to play at the Cliff. That no longer exists. That's Cliff Hagan Stadium. But Kentucky Proud Park is a turf field, and I'll just leave it at that. I'm an originalist as it relates to baseball, but it is a beautiful park. What Coach Minge has done to UK baseball is amazing. And then we also have the Lexington Legends Park over off of Broadway. So there's two. One, the Lexington Legends Park is independent baseball park.
Is it east or west on Broadway?
It would be
West.
Going out like,
it's going out towards 75 on Broadway.
okay,
East.
yeah.
So is that east?
Yeah.
I just know how to get around Lexington. I don't know which direction I'm facing.
Yeah. Going toward New Circle Road?
Yes, if you're inside, if you're downtown, if you're down near Rupp and you're going north,
Yeah.
that's, yeah, it'll be on your left.
Okay.
Any other questions? I can go on forever.
I
Never
got
been to
one.
baseball yet.
What's your favorite time of the day to play? Night, daytime, sunny, cloudy?
That's a great question. I'm actually not a huge fan of night games, just because depending on the lighting, it can be really difficult. Like if somebody's going 100 miles an hour and you don't have good lighting, it can be really tough. And I'm speaking specifically about a time we played Vandy, where somebody was throwing 100 miles an hour and I lost the ball. I couldn't see it. And he was effectively wild and he almost hit me in the head. And I didn't see the ball, I heard it. Whiz by my face, and I didn't swing the bat. I just stood there and hoped for a walk at that point. But I would say like Sunday, start the game at like 11, get done about 3 or 4. That's like my ideal. That's my ideal baseball. Like I gave you the day. You just asked for the time. Give me the day of the week too. I want it to be Sunday. Folks just got out of church, show up to the park, have a long game, and then go somewhere and grab something to eat. That's my like ideal as a player and as a fan. I kind of like that too.
Okay.
So thank you all so much. I got books if that was interesting, and Great evening.
Thank you.